Hey, welcome to rizpod episode 11. We're into the double digits now, looking at tonight the psychology of virtual event engagement, online event engagement, whatever you want to call it. I'm John Harris.
I'm Marisa.
Glad to have you on the show. Short outline for what we're going to talk about today. Start with a story to set the context for why you got to listen to the rest of this, because it blows up. Right?
Yes.
If you don't do this stuff right. But then after that, we're going to talk about thinking about Zoom fatigue. Like, what does that actually really mean? And not this like nebulous term that doesn't mean anything. Talk about the basics of interactivity and then on-screen presentation.
Yes.
Should we get into it?
Yes, we should. Okay. So, I think we're just so used to like our traditional way of scheduling. So most of the time people set up events with like a 2-hour window without consideration of actually what's going to fill up that 2 hour. They don't build like the foundation or the show before. They're just like, it's going to be a 2-hour event. And unfortunately that, especially in a virtual sense, it becomes too much time. Like we don't build the way that I would like to do it is build it from the core. Like what's the meat of the event, and then build from out there. And how much more extra stuff can you do? How much more networking can you do? Go ahead.
What about vegan events? What if there's no meat? Sorry.
You're derailing me, John. Do not derail me.
Plan.
Yes. Okay. Plant-based products, right?
All right. Go forward.
You're building the root before you build the leaves. Okay.
Okay.
So
I love it.
You got to do that analogy. All right. And I'm wearing green. So if those who are watching online are like, it's related. So anyways, it was a hybrid-ish event, so to say, that we were planning. And I got the agenda and it was 3 hours long.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, what portion of this is the virtual? Because like, to me, I'm saying 3 hours, that's like a different type of cost in my eyes, like having me behind a software or whatever for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Let's think about that. So unfortunately, the content, unfortunately, they didn't think about that when they were building the live portion or the advertising of the not the live, the virtual portion, because you can have a really good 2.5-hour event, 2-hour event in person, because there's different delays where you can notice that people are having conversations, or there's food served, or there's a lot of different elements. But in this case, we had a 2-hour event online, and it started, the viewers started dropping at like 35 minutes, 40 minutes.
Okay.
Not because the content was bad. It's just, think about sitting in front of your computer for 2 hours and watching a show. Like, what elements can you bring in to make it more engaging, or am I being engaged at all? So unfortunately, it turned into a lesson learned, because there was nothing you could do at that point to change the run of show. The MC was just going in their flow. They were just thinking about stuff related to the in-person event. But I'm thinking the whole time, like, the numbers are dropping. What can we do to get people engaged? But that wasn't a priority at the time. The priority was in person.
You can't throw that in last minute.
Right? Yeah. So in my opinion, and I think we've talked about this on a past episode, is not considering the online viewers' time when you're doing your planning, because you don't necessarily need to. If you say 2 hours and like your event lasts 90 minutes, cool. Yes, I just got 30 minutes back in my schedule. Like, you don't feel like you have to make it worth their time, because most of the time the virtual viewers have not paid, right? So they're not like, they're not exchanging money for a value. They're exchanging their time for a value. So what is it going to be worth it? But I do have some good examples to be able to get people engaged. And these are events that I've been to that are long, like single track events, but they get the engagement up for the online viewer. And that doesn't necessarily need to be also happening in the room. Like when there's in-room networking or food, you could have something else going on online to get people excited.
Just giving people a break. and
Yeah.
telling them that they get 10 minutes
Yeah,
so that they
right.
can go and grab a coffee or
Yeah.
let their dog outside, right? Like,
One of the really good examples that I've seen, and I don't know how they're able to do this, but like I watch YouTube TV all the time and they have
yeah,
the breaks in and it says just enjoy this moment of zen. It's like a minute, maybe even 30 seconds.
yeah.
But
Don't
it's
look at the
just like
screen for a minute.
music.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
relax. Oh, okay. Like I can relax. I don't need to like watch the screen. I don't need to be engaged. I don't need to like do any action items. I don't need to donate. It's
yeah.
literally just something to give me a break. And even bathroom breaks, like
Totally, yeah.
that wasn't
Worthwhile.
considered for this 2 hours. No one's gonna have a bathroom
Yeah.
break for 2 hours.
Like, I can't even sit through a 2-hour movie without a bathroom break.
Yeah.
Like
And you
you
don't do it like in the theater sense. They always have like act one, intermission, act two. Like, why is that not considered now in a virtual event world? I
right.
mean, some people don't think
It's
about it,
just
right?
it's just basic event stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, why did you forget about that?
Yeah.
Like,
So that's I mean, I've seen DJs where they like the DJ plays requests from people in the comments,
cool.
which is
Okay.
really fun.
Yeah.
And that's like, I mean, they're already gonna play music, and most of the time people are gonna select current music to play. And then they just did a shout out of the person and
Right.
then said, "Oh, I'll play you next." Oh, that's a good choice. And it's like, oh, it makes me want to be here, right? That took like, I think it was like 15-minute DJ set. But I was like there the whole time. I was like, yeah, I'm listening to this. Like I get to listen to music instead of some talking head panel for
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
A yoga activity, you could have a pre-recorded yoga activity like, okay, we're going to just do some stretches. I mean, it's very basic, but if it aligns with your audience or your
Yeah.
mission, I don't think people will be like, "Well, this is dumb."
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense. So,
Yeah. Totally.
um,
Yeah, you could play a game, whatever you wanted to do, right?
yeah, yeah,
But something, some kind of
yes. That's
some
my
kind of break.
story.
Yeah.
It's,
No, love it. That's crazy though. After 40 minutes, that many people dropping off, that's tough.
yeah, and you can't do anything about it. It's
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, you can't get them back.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how do we battle stuff like that? The first segment
Mhm.
we're thinking about is battling like Zoom fatigue. The
Right.
toughest thing for me about Zoom fatigue is when people say it, they use it as this excuse for why online events always suck and they can't do anything about it. They're like, "Oh, but Zoom fatigue." It's
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, well, have you thought about like what that means at all?"
yeah,
First thing for me is like, if you're talking about Zoom fatigue, then maybe if you're talking about Zoom, it's not an event platform, especially if you're using like Zoom webinar. Like that is a webinar, it's not an event. You don't try to call it an event, and you maybe won't. Maybe that'll kind of change your mind, right? Like, um,
Zoom will want you to make it a event platform. They'll market it. Oh, we can do events on Zoom.
yeah, and then but then you end up with Zoom fatigue because it's a webinar. You're trying to like get people to attend a webinar. Like that works if you're trying to just sell a product, but if you're trying to like actually entertain people like an event, like good luck.
Yeah,
Um, but so yeah, so breaking down Zoom fatigue though, like it's Zoom is so much a part of our lives. Like I literally spend 8 hours a day on Zoom. So like
yeah.
it's number one thing about Zoom fatigue, it's work fatigue. Like you're saying,
Mhm.
hey, imagine like you're buying a ticket for an event and it's like, oh, this event, like an in-person event, is like, oh, this event is in my office.
Yeah.
Do I want to go there?
On my phone, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna like no, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
I don't wanna look at a screen. I don't wanna be required to have my camera on, and a lot of times these events, they don't think that. They're just like, "Yeah, we want everyone on." Well, it's like a Zoom where everyone's and then you have that one awkward person or a few awkward people that have their camera off because they don't have a good camera or they're not in the right setting or they're
Yeah.
on the go, they wanna be involved. But
Yeah.
now they're like the random people with like no video or
And
like
then
a
they feel
weird
bad about it, so
avatar.
there's guilt,
Mhm.
and it's,
Yes.
like, ridiculous. Again, going back to in-person events, how often at an in-person event are you gonna be like, "Okay, I'm gonna have a camera pointed at everybody's face, and we're gonna put it up on the big screen behind here." Like, that's gonna be fun for people. Like, no.
No, yeah.
Please.
Think about a stage and are you watching an event or are you having like a 360 camera constantly and taking pictures of everyone
Yeah,
watching? Yeah,
yeah.
no.
Like, that fatigues me just thinking about it. Even as a person that doesn't mind being on camera, right? Like I don't want
Yes.
that when I'm like listening to an event, when I'm when I'm on stage, sure, but when I'm off stage, please no.
Yes.
Another thing is just like some of the reasons people drop off really fast, intro fatigue. Like I see intros that go on to like 10 minutes. Like we want to thank this person and that person and this person and that person. Like whichever sponsor you're thanking, guess what that sponsor wants? They don't want you to thank them a million times. They want the people to show up and know that should show up and stay so they can
Yeah.
get as much screen time with the people as possible. They don't
Right.
want you to be like blabbering about how great they are and have people just leave the event because that's not a great experience. That reflects poorly on them.
Yeah, I think people think, okay, I'm going to make a sponsor video and put it in the beginning and people are going to watch it for 6 minutes. No. Let's
Yeah.
break that up and like drop it in, like sprinkle it in throughout the program, because you also don't work, you're not like having people sit and be bored watch. I mean, the video could be great. It could be like the best produced video, but like it's not energy. You're not feeding off an MC or like someone doing like
Non-interactive.
engagement. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not good.
Yeah, my number one thing with sponsor, just to break away for a second, sponsor recommendations is have them be hosting the panel or speaking about something interesting for the audience or whatever. Make
Yeah.
make that interactive, not like an ad they can watch later. Like
Yeah.
if
Right.
anything that you're kind of recording for a live event is something that people could just find on the internet and watch later, like
Yeah.
goodbye.
I mean, that's a really good point, because if you pre-record some type, even pre-recording a panel or an interview, one, it's like you can repurpose it over and over, and it's not baked in like the 5th minute to the 8th minute of this whole 1 hour, 2 hour video. It's like, oh, let's replay this. Let's put this on social. Did you hear about this panel from our amazing sponsor? There's so many different ways to do it without just, okay, we checked that box in the program there in the beginning. It's fine. We're
Yeah.
done. No.
And then finally, I think final fourth thing. So work fatigue, on camera fatigue, intro fatigue, zero interactivity fatigue
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
another one. I actually have a fifth one after this, but zero interactivity fatigue. You can't see the other people. Typically, if you're using Zoom webinar, you can't see other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, is that really an event? No, it's just a webinar, because you go to
Yeah.
events usually for a shared experience.
Yeah.
You can't message people.
Yeah. No.
Sometimes on Zoom you can, but when you do, you got to be like ridiculously careful because everybody's name looks almost the same, so it's hard to see who you're. And you send messages to the wrong people. I've done that a million times. Just always got to keep it appropriate, right? And then you also can't follow up. Like it's like at an event,
Mm-hmm.
you get contact info for people that you meet, and you can
Right.
talk to them afterwards.
Yeah.
The Zoom webinar, it's like theoretically there was 99 other people there. Great.
Yeah. And and it is also in that interaction, like, are they giving calls to action to connect, or is it just like, cool, I saw you in the Zoom room, when there's like no other ability for them to really engage with someone? And yeah, it's what about if you have 200 attendees and you're trying to scroll through that list of like,
Yeah, exactly.
okay, like there's John Harris, but there's like John Harris because he signed in on his phone too. And then like all of these things. I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't know
if they
which one.
even
And I
have put
just,
a name, it's it's
yeah, not good.
just
Not good.
not quite there. Oh, what was my fifth thing? I forget. Oh, just like desk fatigue. Like,
Hmm.
um, so if you're running the event on Zoom, again, Zoom fatigue is like, if I've been at my desk for 8 hours for my workday already, do I want to sit for another couple hours for your Zoom event? And so that's why having, like, even if you're just doing your event on like YouTube, like live streaming or something like
Hmm.
that, or using an event site like Buzzit, people can use it on their phones. They can walk away. Maybe they can go outside and sit on their patio and consume your event.
Yes.
Right. And it's just like by making it be more just easily accessible for people, you can like
Hmm.
literally double your show up rates and get people to stay longer because they can, like, if they get antsy, they can walk around. If they
Yeah.
need to go to the door, they can walk to the door, like,
Right.
and not and bring you with them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Zoom fatigue. The five plagues of Zoom fatigue. It's kind of
Yeah. And especially, I mean, from a business standpoint, if your target audience is business decision makers, you don't want to have it on Zoom because they've all been on Zoom all day long.
Yeah.
Like for me, like I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this event because it's going to require me to be present more, show up, have my face, like, so it's like, I don't know if that goes into the psychology of whether or not I'm going to engage or even attend,
Right.
register, then attend,
Yeah.
because what is the commitment for me to have to do something like that?
Yeah.
Who can make those decisions, might buy your thing, might buy your course, might want to hear your stuff, but like
Yeah.
I'm already doing all that all day long.
Yeah.
So,
And then if the reason you're using Zoom is because it's like low cost, like how much other cost is the event already? Like if you have a
yeah.
producer, if you have all your employees' time, like everybody that's your exec's time, like you're
Mhm.
already investing so much into like use the not worse, but use a poor delivery method. It's like
Mhm.
you like tried to bring rock star people and then tried to like to an in-person event, it's like you tried to have like rock star presenters, but you're like,
Mhm.
we're hosting it at a dive bar. It's like, what? What?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm
It's a
not gonna
great
go.
analogy.
But I don't want to get stabbed.
Yeah, and I want a clean bathroom, so
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen. Oh, man. Now it's like, you're making me not wanna go to any Zoom events anymore. I love Zoom because it gets
Yeah.
stuff done between people, but not for events, not for
Yeah,
me,
exactly.
sorry.
So moving on to like psychology stuff we said we were gonna talk about, right?
Mhm.
I've got a story about one of these ideas. We have three kind of basic ideas of the psychology of interactivity.
Mhm.
So make it a shared experience, make the attendee feel recognized, and then
Mhm.
don't do things just because you can.
Yeah.
Um, so shared experience, I think, is the most important for me. And one thing I wanted to mention about like what I was thinking, just like back, what was like my first like virtual event experience? And believe it or not, I'm kind of going outside the box here, but it goes back to 1994. Okay.
Okay.
Stanley Cup Finals, Vancouver
Mhm.
Canucks, and New York Rangers. So I'm from Vancouver, nearby Vancouver, Canada. So was a pretty big Canucks fan. You know when they were actually pretty good. In 1994, they went to the finals, and it was crazy. And so, like, just about being a shared experience, right? Even though we were all in our homes watching a non-interactive TV feed with commercials in the middle, everybody's glued to their screens, right? One of
Yeah.
the things just like knowing that it was that everybody else was watching made it that shared experience, right?
Mhm.
Because you could like
Mhm.
knowing everybody else is watching the next day at school, you could talk to people about it. And like 2 days later, there's another game.
Right.
What's going to happen? It's going to be crazy. And then during the game, one cool thing. So like for live interactivity, like when Canucks scored goals, people will be out on their patios banging pots and pans together, right? And
Nice.
so you could like hear it like echo through the neighborhood. So
Nice.
it made for like a real shared experience, even though we were just watching TV in our own homes, right?
Right. Right. Oh my god, that's the old school days.
Right. And I guess it's kind of like the same for any like, just any mega event people are watching,
Mhm. Mhm.
Super Bowl, whatever. It's so much more fun just to know that other people are seeing it at the same time.
Yeah.
And so when you can with a, again with Zoom webinar, sometimes it's just like you can't even see that there's other people there. And so
Yeah.
how do you even know if there's another person? And
Right.
so how is that a shared experience? It's not at all. And so then
Mhm.
it's not a
Well, yeah, I liken that to when, like, sadly, when, like, lots of current events happen, like, people are on Twitter and it's like everyone's, like, trying to find out what's going on, like, kind of like this whole, like, submarine thing that happened recently, like, everyone's trying to, like, be an expert and engage and, and it's like and it's just Twitter, but that's fun to some people. Or like when Michael Jordan released his, documentary, like, it was like a whole thing, like, I have lots of sports followers, everyone's giving their feedback,
yeah,
it made me like we were all streaming it, like, separately in our home, but, like, we were all engaging
yeah,
in that one topic and thinking, yeah, we didn't see each other. It makes people remember those times. I mean, your time came up in memory, so did mine, because it was a nice experience. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just sitting here and it's
yeah. It's something you did
no
with
one
other
out.
people, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't
exactly.
just like a TV show you watched or something, right?
Virtually.
Yeah. But no, that's cool. I think that's the biggest thing for me behind like virtual events and like making them better is like just make it feel like a shared experience so that people get
Yeah.
to do it together. That's how we form bonds. It's like it's so important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's possible even with 1994 technology.
And the
Yeah,
next
you
thing
do
is
this one.
make the attendee feel recognized. And I think I mentioned this. I've seen a few events. Actually, just went to one that was part of a in the events space. They were doing the interview with the firefly guy or the what is
Yeah,
it? Yeah, like the anyways, it was like a long event, but like we couldn't chat with other people there. It was like we submit our question and maybe it will get selected for Q&A, and it was like, "Oh, well what's the point of this?" Like to me, I was like done after 30 minutes. I was like, I don't need to hear this guy. Like
yeah,
I know what happened and he's learning from it and it's fine, but it wasn't a shared experience. There was no like attendee recognition. It was kind of just like, thanks for being here. Now watch us. Right.
yeah,
So yeah, and just like the DJ, when the DJ would call out our name saying,
yeah,
"Hey, that's a great suggestion." And I think it was like a women's like empowerment like business thing, and so we were
yeah,
all like suggesting like Girl on Fire and like all these cool like women focused
yeah.
empowerment songs. So it's just like interesting, very small thing, but really also very impactful, made me want to stay longer,
Yeah,
you
makes
know?
you feel like you're actually there instead of just
Mhm.
tuning in from home, right?
Imagine going to an in-person event and no one saying anything to
No,
you.
if
Not even hi.
nobody making eye contact.
Not even. Not even.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
You walk in
And
and nobody makes eye contact or
yeah.
says hello.
Yeah, and thinking about it in a virtual sense, one action item you could do. Maybe you don't have the budget to bring in a DJ that has the full setup, whatever, but you can have a virtual high five person. That's the person that just like is on staff and like says, "Thank you for coming," like looks at their profile. "Oh, that's cool that you're from blah blah blah." Like very simple
Yeah,
engagement that makes you feel recognized and makes you worth your while for
totally.
coming to events.
Yeah, my final point here, don't do things just because you can. I see people advertising Zoom events and they're like in like bold letters, excited, underlined exclamation marks. We're gonna do polling. And it's like, great. Woo, la-di-da. Please poll me. I'm just dying to be polled. Like,
I guess it depends on the goals if you're going back to
yeah,
like our
no, polls
first.
aren't bad, but just don't do them just because you can,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Like if they're interesting and people really want to know, how does the audience feel about this? Like
Yeah.
maybe it's an interesting, like kind of divisive issue. It's like interesting to get that feedback, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I
But
definitely see,
it shouldn't curate your design of your event. And I
yeah,
think
it's
a
a
lot of
feature,
people
right?
use them in the like if the answer is this, then we're going to do that. And it's like, no, you should already have your designed event. Like you should know the flow. This is to get people engaged, but not necessarily to determine what's going to be happening.
Yeah.
Um, oh, yeah.
Uh,
Polls just to have a poll and like I'm like just make a decision. Let's just make a decision and go. Let's go. You
yeah.
know? So,
Yeah, final segment, psychology of on-screen delivery. So super important. This is just thinking
mhm,
about like what can somebody do just as a presenter, essentially, to just make
mhm.
the event better, more
Yeah.
welcoming for the people, right?
Yeah. And I think two perspectives. You can be a producer and train someone as much as possible. But also if you're a speaker, practice speaking to the cameras.
Yeah,
Like go to the virtual platform and test it yourself so that you get comfortable. I know I do that all the time. Like we prep our meeting agendas, and that's just
yeah,
a simple meeting agenda, but just so you know, okay, like what tabs do I have to have open, blah blah blah, like let's, and don't be afraid to ask as a speaker, can we do a run through, just you and
yeah,
I, like don't rely on them to like prep you as much as possible because
yeah.
it it's gonna determine whether or not you get asked back to do another speaking engagement if you're not good on camera or engaging on camera.
And then if you don't have the most engaging people in the world, like this is going to happen sometimes. Like every
Mhm.
company's got their own people to deal with. I recommend like having conversation over presentation. Like
Yes.
most people can do what we're doing, just blab back and forth. It's not that hard. If I was doing this show on my own, it'd be tough.
Yeah.
Like so,
Yeah.
like it's easier to have a conversation than actually just do a presentation, essentially,
Hmm.
right? So if you can have it that way, it's like it can just flow so much easier for people,
Yeah.
right?
And as an event planner or organizer, understand the need for that sometimes, where it might help the presenter be more comfortable if they like miss something. Like, and then you can just come in and like mention that or remind me about it because we understand the goals of the event or the segment that we're talking about. So it's really good to have that. I think it makes people feel more comfortable too. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, absolutely. What else? Like other major, what would be your like next couple major tips for like on screen? I mean, you do so much more of this training than I do.
yeah, I think you can prep people in the tech space as much as possible, but I think also holding people capable of the fact that they can do this, like if they are a speaker and they know their stuff, like giving them the power to be able to just be free with like whatever, the gift of gab, the intro, like make
Yeah,
sure you allow them space to do that so that they can feel more comfortable, even if it's just a matter of like just doing, like you said, like a conversation transition from intro, conversation, and then presentation, so that way it's like, okay, this is more calm. I think it's really, really hard for people to speak into the camera.
yeah,
And there's no real easy way to like remember to do that. But I think when, especially if you're on camera with someone else, because you feel like you have to look at them.
yeah.
But I'm not looking at you right now. And I'm sure
You're a pro.
I'm sure it's like fine, when you're watching this, like, oh wow, they're actually looking into the screen and the camera. And yeah, it's practice, practice, practice. I don't think virtual events and virtual speaking gigs are going to go away, or even things like this where we're like talking about our expertise. They're not going away. So it's just a matter of think about the people that are younger generations, even like the generation below us, but the ones that are coming up right now with all the technology, they're gonna talk into the camera no matter what. Like
Yeah,
they just grew up
absolutely.
like that. So like
Yeah,
you gotta either like get on board with it,
yeah.
or
You're gonna start showing your age, everybody.
you're gonna be a
Li-
dinosaur. Don't be a dinosaur.
Lighting and makeup isn't gonna matter anymore. Yeah, the other thing I think was worth mentioning is just being like ready for distraction. So people are at home, they're
Yes.
or somewhere else. They're
Hmm.
probably you don't get to control their environment like you do at
Yes.
an in-person event. And so they're
Hmm.
probably going to be distracted, right?
Hmm.
And so why I like having stuff up on the screen like we do right now is if we're able to come on like partway through the live stream,
Hmm.
they would have instant context. So they know what the show is called, they know who we are, they have some kind of idea about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's just like having that instant context. Like that's why CNN, you can just like somehow walk into an airport and end up watching CNN for 3 hours because it's like it's got the
Hmm.
tickers going in all different directions, and like it's
Yeah.
easy to immediately look at it and immediately know what's happening,
Right.
right? It's
Exactly.
there's such a value in that people don't
uh,
recognize, right?
Back to your original point about the distractions, you can't control it, but you also should know that it can happen, and you need to have a backup host or backup someone who understands the flow that can come in and be like your backup. Like, what if, God forbid, you're an in-person event, something happens to the main person? Yeah, you shut down, nothing happens. But do you do that in a virtual sense? Yeah, you probably do. You have some screen like technical difficulties, we'll be
Yeah,
back, or like have someone come on, say like, hey, we're going to get on with our program. We can't, this person lost their internet. I mean,
yeah,
I've had virtual events where like there was like a thunderstorm warning and I like said like, okay, this is, if this happens, like someone, like I'll run it from my phone, or like I'll have to call someone to like run it from my phone, or
yeah,
them run it from their computer, but having those in place because it's on screen, but it's also the technology behind screen
yeah.
that you need.
Any other major items for on-screen delivery you think are worthwhile? I think one thing that I think we mentioned in the beginning, start with a bang. That's like skip the
Yes.
intros, right? Just get into it. Just
Yeah.
start delivering value. Spend all
Yes.
day thanking people.
We have really awesome technology on YouTube and everywhere that like scans all your content and basically tells it whether or not it's valuable. And if they constantly hear the same intro of like John and I, and then like what the Resilient Events is about, like it's gonna constantly be something that's not valuable in their eyes because they're just analyzing the first couple of minutes. So start with a bang. I mean, that happens in person too. You don't have someone coming up on stage that doesn't have energy.
Hey
Why would
guys.
you not do it like in a virtual sense too, you know? So
Awesome. It's so easy. Just think about in real life events and think about like how you're going to translate that.
Yeah.
How tough is that, right?
Oh, it's tough for a lot of people, John. I think that's a great way to end our episode of Psychology of Virtual Engagement. If you have any tips or anything that you want to share with us, stories like ours, you can reach out to us. Go to rizpod.live, find the contact button. You can reach out to us. We are also available on LinkedIn. John, do you have any final words?
Buenos noches.
All righty. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Resilient Events, where co-hosts Marisa and John provide overwhelmed entrepreneurs with a comprehensive strategy for using podcasts, live streams, and events to establish expertise in any industry. With real-life examples and events expertise, they'll help you finish planning and start doing. Only on the 100 TV network. Visit rizpod.live for show extras and freebies.